Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing? I am so excited to be making another video today. I was going to have a snack, but this video is kind of a long one, so I wanted to make sure we get through it all. Maybe if we have time at the end, I'll go ahead and do a snack of the day. But I do recommend grabbing a drink. Maybe pour yourself a glass of wine because we have a lot to cover today. I'm drinking tea because I still have a little bit of a sore throat, and a cough, so I want to make sure I'm not aggravating my throat. So I'm going to be drinking something warm today. So today I want to dive into something that I find to be very important, and that is the power of the follow-up. The fact that I have mastered the art of the follow-up has led me to thousands and thousands of sales. So it's actually the number one thing that I do in my business that generates revenue. And so I find that this topic is very important, and I really wanted to share this with you, how I go about doing it. So, 2 videos ago, I talked about how, hey, let's close the year out strong. If you are in sales or you own a business, let's not let the holidays distract us. It can be so easy to ease into the holidays and slow down, and that's totally fine if you've been working really hard all year, but why not use this time, this quiet time, to actually ramp up and start planting seeds for January and for future years to come? So, because while everyone else is sleeping and, maybe taking this time off, I feel like you can get ahead and get a head start over all of your competitors. So let's stay productive. Let's not lose any momentum. In fact, I would really argue that this is actually the best time to put even more work into it while others are kind of like in that rest mode and they sort of least expect it. So, going back to the power of follow up and why I call it the power of the follow up is because I've been doing this practice for over 5 years now. And let me tell you, there has not been one single time where when I followed up with my customers that day, I didn't get at least one renewed interest from an old prospect. And I literally mean like not one time. Not one time have I done this exercise where it didn't lead me into one open door or one lead that I need to now follow. Meaning, as long as I called at least like 20 people, there was always at least one person who came back and said, "Oh, yeah, I am ready to pick this back up now." And for those of you who don't know, I'm in the business of selling residential doors and windows. Um, so sometimes when they call the first time, when they call my business, they're just inquiring about prices. But then things might come up. Either it's too early in their project to actually purchase anything, or things come up and they had to put the project aside. Maybe they were waiting to close escrow. Maybe they just haven't gotten their permits yet, whatever it may be. So we lose contact and we lose that momentum. But when I do this exercise, again, there's always at least one customer who says, "Oh, yeah, I'm ready to talk about this again." After I, give them a call, like maybe I haven't heard from them in months, and then when I give them that call, they express renewed interest. And when you're talking about high ticket items, one deal could potentially be enough to pay for all of your bills for the month. So getting one of those sales here and there, it is worth the effort, in my opinion, to make those individual calls. Now, if you're selling a low ticket item, maybe like $44, and you have to make a ton of calls just to make that $44, this might not be the thing for you to do at this time. I probably wouldn't recommend you do this right off the bat. But what I would suggest is that you come up with another product that you can add to your business to make it a high ticket sale, or create an offer suite of products that make it a high ticket sale, and then do this exercise. So my threshold And for the sake of this conversation, let's assume we're dealing with high ticket sales. Let's call it $500 or more. I probably wouldn't be doing this exercise if I knew the payout would be a little less than that. But if you're just starting out and this is all you got, then by all means, go for it. I'm just trying to think of like biggest bang for your buck as far as like your time is concerned. All right. Now that all of you know what the exercise is, which is basically just following up with all of your leads and who it's for, let's talk about exactly who you are calling, who is considered a lead. And so basically for me, I keep track of every single inquiry I get from a potential customer. I'm talking about people who call my company directly, who email us, who message us straight from our website chat box, all of our socials, Instagram, Facebook, and even seller platforms like Etsy and eBay. Basically, anyone who has ever contacted my company since 2020 when I first started essentially gets put on a spreadsheet. And yes, I still am using a spreadsheet to keep track. I don't have a CRM just yet because I don't really feel like I need one just yet. My system is doing just fine. I drop their info into my spreadsheet with just their name, their phone number, and a note about what they're looking for, maybe what I quoted them, and that I also keep track of all the dates that I reached out to them. And if I actually got through and they picked up the phone, like what were the results of that call or that text message or that exchange? So even if I call someone and they don't pick up, I'll write the date because that implies that I reached out either via text or call. So I keep track of everything. And if a customer purchases, I will highlight them in pink. If a customer, because I just love the color pink, and if a customer says, I already made a purchase elsewhere and I'll never need your service, then I might highlight them in red so that I never call them back. And if they are a hot lead looking to buy like ASAP, I will highlight them in green to let them know that I need to follow up with them first. So here's the thing, just because someone already purchased from someone else doesn't mean they won't need your product or service in the future. So for people like that who already purchased, I may only follow up with them once a year. And when I follow up, I might ask them for a referral. And especially if they are a contractor who decided to end up going with someone else on that one project, you better believe I am following up with them at least once a quarter. So, contractors are people who would be giving me repeat business. So, I would think about whether that is, who that person would be in your industry. Who is someone in your industry that has the potential to feed you more business over time, who would potentially be a repeat customer? And I would focus on those people who have like a pipeline of referrals that they could potentially send to you. And it always helps to give them a referral fee or bonus. Um, so something to just incentivize them to think of you. And even if you think, well, I don't really have the kind of business where I would call people or make sales calls, just because it hasn't been done that way or because you haven't done it that way doesn't mean it can't be done that way. What if you are the first person to do it that way? What if you create your own reality and you make the opportunity happen for yourself? Instead of waiting for someone to discover your product or your service, what if you made outreach calls to different types of companies that you could potentially pitch your services to? I'll give you an example. If you are a feminine energy coach, okay, or an educator, what if rather than waiting around for clients to notice you for your coaching business, what if you actually did some outreach on your end and try to make the opportunities happen for yourself? And so you that could look like doing collaborations with other people. What if you pitch yourself to magazines and offer to write a guest piece, kind of tying your teachings into to speak to their audience? What if you pitched yourself as a guest speaker at a conference? All of these things are marketing and PR, which is in the early stages of your career when resources can be low. You're going to have to be your own PR and marketing firm. So I think I could do a whole separate YouTube video on its own on just that topic. But the main point is that I want to invite you to be super creative and get in the mindset of creating your own reality and create the outreach and the follow-up, especially if you don't already have a ton of customers coming in or customer inquiries coming in. All right. So basically, what I'm trying to say is anyone that ever reaches out to you, whether it was through social media, through email, through Instagram ads, doesn't matter. Take that info, write it down, keep it. Don't just like let them come in, ask a question, and then bounce. Take their info, try to get them on a phone call if you can. At least get their phone number. That way, even if when they're like asking you a question and things kind of dwindle, at least you have their number. You can hit them back up in a month, maybe a week, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months, and consider them as a lead. So I would definitely keep track of every single person that has ever reached out to you and start creating your own database and use that as a starting point for when you're making these calls. Okay. So now that you know who you're calling, you know that every single person that ever reached you is a lead. The next thing is, so what are you saying or pitching? This is obviously going to look very different across the board, but hopefully you can kind of take a cue as to what I do and tweak it to match your industry or your business. For me, what I end up writing to them is if I'm texting them or even if I'm on the phone. So when I'm texting or sending an email, I'll say, "Hey John, just wanted to follow up and see if you ever ended up purchasing your door or if this project is still pending. I look forward to hearing from you." And then just another way of wording this. "Hey, hi John, it's been a few months since we last spoke. Were you ready to revisit the discussion of your XYZ product?" Or, "Hi John, just wanted to follow up to see if you were close to making a decision on your XYZ product. I'd love to provide you with a free quote." Okay? I have sent maybe hundreds of different variations of that text. So don't get too caught up on the wording. It doesn't really matter. The point is that you want to obviously make it make sense for your business. And most importantly, keep it short and sweet. 2 sentences max. Do not send a paragraph, especially if it's a little passive aggressive. Definitely do not be sending any passive aggressive text messages just because you haven't heard from them in a while. Like, don't, first of all, honestly, can we just say, don't be sending passive aggressive text messages like or paragraphs to anyone, even if it's your spouse or your brother or your sister or your cousin or your mom. Like, don't be doing that. No one likes them. No one reads them. If you have something to say, just pick up the phone and call and say, tell them what you want to say. But especially do not be doing this in business. I mean, I think it goes without saying, but you'd be surprised. So I just want to make sure I put that out there. In other words, please don't waste other people's time. Keep it short, keep it direct and to the point. No need for any stories. No, sorry, I didn't follow up sooner, blah, blah, blah. Just get to the point and tell them why you're texting them. Now, I do want to mention that I do a combination of calling and texting follow-up. I do get a better result of getting answers when I call them, especially if I feel like they didn't save my number, they don't know who's calling, and then they tend to pick up, and then I introduce myself. And if they don't pick up, I've heard that the trick is to not leave a message. I learned that from Sarah Blakely, that you never leave messages, just call them back. Um, if sometimes they don't pick up, I may shoot them a text message too, because sometimes people do prefer to respond via text. So I kind of give them that option. But I will call them a few times first. And then if I'm really not getting through, then I will go ahead and send them that text message. Okay. If I don't have their number, then I'll just go back and use the method that we were first communicating through. So if that was via email, I actually have my assistant pull up every single email between me and a customer that did not result in a sale. And I'll have her queue it all up and save it in my drafts. Like she'll queue up the email, she'll write our my response, my kind of generic response, and then I will go in, reread it, maybe tweak it if I need to, personalize it a little bit, and then I'll hit send. And I do this practice maybe once a month, maybe every 2 months, where again, we kind of go through all the emails from the last time we sent. We did this exercise. So any new emails since then, um, where that we were engaging with customers, we just send it all over again. All right. So, and again, the message in the email as well as on the phone is generally the same thing. Hi, so and so. It's been a few months since we spoke. Just wanted to know what the status of your project was. Are you guys ready to look into this, or did you already make your purchase already? If they already made their purchase, I will try to get more info, meaning like I may ask them where they ended up going, who they ended up going with, and why they ended up choosing that person over me. And just to kind of get more feedback and understand maybe if there's something that I could improve. It's always just good to know. The more information you get, the better. And when I do ask, I actually get very valuable information from them. Like such and such company does XYZ thing, and that's why they decided to go with them. So it's really helpful to communicate with the people that even purchase from someone else. If you can get feedback, I mean, feedback is great. All right, so now you know what to say and you know what methods to use to follow up. And you might be wondering, well, okay, how often do we do the follow up? So, my response to that is if it's an active hot lead, I would follow up daily or maybe every other day, just so that you don't lose that speed or momentum. If they tell you how much time they'll need, then obviously that trumps everything. So if they tell you like, yeah, okay, I'm still like in the deciding phase, I'm not really sure, I need like about a month, then make note of that. Like, hey, give them a month. Don't be following up sooner than what they asked for, because I feel like that just kind of makes you a little look a little creepy, maybe a little desperate. So if they say follow up in a month and then you follow up in 1 week, it's just kind of weird. Don't do that. It just it kind of also just shows that you can't follow simple instructions. So not a good look. If they say they need 3 weeks, give them the full 3 weeks. I would even say it wouldn't hurt to give them 3 weeks in a day, 3 weeks in 2 days, you know, just so that you don't come across like too needy or desperate. For colder leads that never respond, I would say follow up maybe once a month. If it's a really, really cold lead, meaning like some of my leads are super cold because they came in the year 2020. So I'm not going to follow up with them once a month. Maybe I'll switch to every 3 months. Maybe I'll switch to once a year. You're going to have to use your a little bit of your own discernment on this. And you might be thinking, okay, but Nelly, I followed up via text and they never responded. Oh my God, just keep following up. Follow up until they tell you, do not call me or do not text me. Until they tell you that, it is fair game. If they want, they can block you. Or they can just flat out say, hey, I'm not interested in your services. But if they have not communicated that, then I would still follow up. The point is to get at least some kind of response that kind of lets you know where they're at with their decision. Do they need 3 months? Do they need 6 months? That that might apply a little bit more to my industry where they legitimately have legitimate reasons for not buying right now. Because when you're building a home, there's a lot of moving pieces. It's not just something that you can necessarily like decide today and go and buy your doors and windows. There's so many other factors. Maybe they don't have the permits yet. Maybe they're still in the building phase or demolition phase. There's so many reasons why they wouldn't be able to buy. But if you're in the kind of industry where, let's say you're selling a digital course or something, in a way, if they're just postponing, it's probably just because they're postponing. It's not because of any true outside factor. So I would say definitely go ahead and follow up there. But I want to go back to the no responses, okay? There have been times where I have messaged a customer 7, 8, 9, 10 times. I don't know how many. I keep track of it all, right? But there's so many customers that I have messaged them a million gazillion times, maybe for several years in a row. No response whatsoever. I think the average normal person would be like, I don't know, afraid of that rejection or take it personally or feel some type of way about it. But I would say just get over it. Get over it. First of all, who cares? Who cares if they haven't responded? It doesn't matter because one day they probably will. And when that time comes and you made, let's say, two, $3,000 off of that person that didn't respond and rejected you time and time and time and time again, but then you end up making money from them because they decided to buy from you, trust me, it's going to be worth the effort. You're not even going to worry. You're not even going to care that you reached out to them so many times. So, and I can't even begin to tell you how many times that's happened to me. That's why I know the power of the follow-up works because I have had so many customers where I did follow up with them time after time after time again, did not get a single response. And then guess what? They placed like a $50,000 order. So was it worth it? Hell yeah, it was worth it. So I would say please do not let no responses deter you from continuing to follow up. Again, everyone is a lead. Everyone from the day you were born, the day your business was born until now, every single person is a lead. Everyone deserves to be followed up with until they say, stop reaching out to me. Then, yes, remove them and don't ever call them again. I will say I have lost customers because I did not follow up, and they ended up going with whoever was in front of them at the time when they were ready to purchase. Even if they were very hopeful and pleasant and it seemed like they were going to buy, they, I've had customers tell me that they just forgot about me. So it's not like they wouldn't have. They just genuinely, they weren't ready at the time. And then several months after the fact, when they were ready, they just went with the first person that was there. And so that's why I just don't want that to ever happen again. And that's why I always follow up now so that I'm always at the top of their mind when they are ready to purchase. And I think that, I mean, I don't think, I know because I've heard this feedback from customers. They really appreciate the fact that I'm on top of it and I just have that tenacity to like, go after their business and be on top of things. They do appreciate. They're like, "Huh, she's hungry. I like her. I'm going to give her my business." And side note, it goes without saying, I'm going to repeat it, and even though I said it already, I'll repeat it again, that obviously if a customer says, "Don't ever call me," then do not ever call them back. Don't follow up with them. Like, duh, like you should not be doing that. I only follow up the people that have not said any such thing. All right. So, what do you do when when the follow-up works and then the customer says like, "Oh yeah, I am ready to revisit this." Well, then you close the freaking deal. Do not let this renewed interest go to a waste. Act immediately on that interested buyer. Your focus at that point should be just going to closing that deal ASAP. That person then becomes a hot lead and they go into the category of following up daily or every other day until they either buy the product or they tell you they're holding off again for XYZ reason. But definitely just close it. Sometimes I will even stop following up with customers for the rest of the day just so that I can focus my attention on this one interested buyer because I want to make sure I seal the deal and I don't want it to like let it get away from me. And then another thing is, of course, so when you do follow up, and let's say someone isn't interested at the time, maybe again, they have outside factors that are preventing them from moving forward, I would just ask them, "Hey, when would be a good time to follow up? Would a month be good? Maybe 3 months?" Depending on their situation, kind of gauge how long you think it will take for them to resolve whatever it is that's holding them back. Um, and I think, and just don't be afraid to give them ample time. I think customers actually appreciate when you don't pressure them into making a hasty decision. And I think that people appreciate knowing that they're not going to hear from you every single week and get annoyed. So I think it shows that you're level-headed into understanding their situation and understanding that, hey, if they say that they haven't closed escrow on this property and it could take like a month or two, would it make sense for you to call them back in a week? No, it wouldn't. Give them that ample time to close escrow. Give them ample time to get their permit. Permitting takes like months and months and months. It wouldn't make logical sense for you to keep following up on people when you know that they logically their situation hasn't changed. So it is going to require a little bit of common sense too. Um, and no one wants to be annoyed, even if they need your product, like no one wants to be annoyed by their salesperson. And for the love of God, if you're going to say, if you tell them you're going to follow up in 3 months, then actually make sure you follow up in 3 months. Do not forget about them. Keep your word and keep track of who needs to be followed up in 3 months. I keep track. Like so I keep track in my spreadsheet who I follow up with on a daily basis. And I'll build it up for the month. So I'll literally put every single day in columns and then I'll write their name down of who I contacted. Then for future months, since I'm not there yet, let's say in the month of November, or let's say I have to follow up with someone in 3 months. And let's say in February, I need to follow up with someone. Then under the column of February, I'll put all the people that I need to follow up with that month. So, and I make sure I do. And also, I think that really impresses people that you stuck to your word and you didn't forget about them. All right. Now, how many of these follow-ups should you do and how often? So, I personally think the maximum I've done in a day has been like 50, I think even 100. I've done, I think, 100 calls at one point. 100 was a little rough. I was kind of like a little antsy by the end of it. So 50 is like a pretty good number. You cannot go wrong with 50. When I'm feeling kind of lazy, I might do like 20 to 30. And I feel like 20 to 30 for my business works well because it's enough people where I am getting at least one renewed interest and the amount of work that I have to follow that up with on the renewed interest isn't like overextending myself, if that makes sense. So obviously do what works for you, but if you are just starting out and like maybe this whole thing is like a little scary to you, I would say just start with 10, just to get the ball rolling. Once you get the ball rolling, then I would ramp up to like 50, minimum 50. And I would keep doing 50 until your business picks up and you are genuinely pretty busy. You're busy with sales calls, you're busy handling this and that. Then, if you absolutely have to, step it down to 30 and or delegate it to someone else or delegate other tasks to other people and then you keep doing the sales calls yourself. It also obviously just depends on how quickly you can make the calls and get off the phone. My phone calls, again, I am a woman of few words, believe it or not. I don't like to ramble on. I don't like to be on the phone for very long. So I try to keep the calls as brief as possible. I try to get in and out. Okay. Mm, I literally just try to call them, get the information that I need, which is like, what's the status of their purchase? And then I get off the phone. Why? Because I know that when people call me, that's what I appreciate. I don't want to have full-length conversations with people trying to sell me something. So I tend to make these calls the way I want to be treated. That's just my thing. I like to be short and concise and respectful of people's time. I personally believe people will appreciate that you're not there to waste their time. Now, if you need to become more of a salesperson, I'm sure that salespeople have a completely different tactic than this. Because from what I've heard, it's like, no, you want to keep them on the phone. You want to keep them talking. You want to get to know their family and, what they had for lunch and where they traveled last summer and da 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 da. Like, so I hear that there's other tactics and other ways of doing this because like you want to establish more of a relationship with them and blah blah blah. Sure. I mean, if that works, great. I've never really looked into it. I've never taken sales classes. Up until this point, I've just never needed to be that way. I always go into the call with the assumption that they will buy from me. It's just a matter of number one, can they afford it? And number two, is it the right time? I never assume that I need to sell them on my product. I assume that my product is what they need and they will buy so long as they're in the market and if they can come to my level and afford it. Again, this is where I could probably do a whole other YouTube video of like the mindset of owning this, of owning the belief that your product is the shit and like there's no reason why they wouldn't buy unless it's like for reasons outside of their control. But I did want to address this here a little bit and give you the advice that I personally adopt. And because I know that there's probably some salespeople out there listening to me right now and thinking that like these are very like contradictory methods from what they're used to. But this is just what works for me. This is what I've been doing. I choose to keep it really brief as opposed to trying to keep them on the phone and making this whole big formal pitch of like trying to sell them on the product. I really don't sell them on anything. I present, if they want it, cool. If they don't, on to the next one. I don't pitch. I don't sell. I really don't. All right. So, to wrap up what we talked about the power of the follow-up. We talked about what businesses can use it. Hopefully, anyone listening to this can use it. How to follow up, what to say, who to follow up with, how often to do the follow-up, and what to do when someone shows interest, and what to do when they're still not ready to buy. So I hope this was really helpful. It's definitely one of those topics that I just felt like needed to come out because it's worked so well for me for so many years, and it has led me to many sales in the past. It's my number one method of getting sales. And if you know anyone in sales or anyone that has a business, please forward them this video. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment below telling me how you're going to begin implementing this in your business, okay? And as always, I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.